The campaign embargo has lifted, and today we're going to go through the Chaos Dwarf Campaign Mechanics. Now, I don't want to spoil anything for you, so we'll be doing this with minimal gameplay. I'll basically be showing off the menus that we've all seen through the gameplay videos on Total War's YouTube page, but I'll then expand upon how the mechanics operate while also giving you some tips and insight into some of the pitfalls that can occur. The Chaos Dwarfs have a ton of really interesting mechanics that seem like they operate in silos, but are actually very dependent on one another, either by resource or outright passive game. You can navigate to any part of the or mechanic that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. Also, if you've not yet pre-ordered the Chaos Dwarf DLC, make sure you use my affiliate link in the description to take advantage of the sale. You'll get a Steam key directly from Creative Assembly, and it goes a long way to support myself as well as my mini Aussie's rabid treat addiction. You have no idea. When this video goes live, I'll be streaming a Zatan the Black Chaos Dwarf campaign on Twitch at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll be playing legendary difficulty, so swing on by and ask your questions in person, or maybe, just hang out. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, so drop on by. But let's get started here on the Chaos Dwarf Campaign Mechanics. All right, we're here in the campaign, and just as a really quick note, you'll see in the upper left corner it says development in progress. Since this is early access and the game does come out April 13th, some of the numbers of what you're going to see might change by then. Just wanted to throw that kind of little quick disclaimer out before we jump into this. So what I want to talk about first are just some of the general campaign mechanics. And really what I'm talking about here is the currency. So we have four real major currencies that the Chaos Dwarves use. The raw materials, which are generated from outpost settlements mines, they're used to construct various buildings and can be converted into armaments or treasury income within a factory settlement's buildings. We'll get to that in a little bit. And you can see all the ways in which you gain raw materials. Battles, building constructions, convoys, mines, missions, raid settlements, and the Tower of Zharr itself. And it's lost by building construction, consummation, is consumed, technology, and what have you. Then you have armaments, and armaments are going to be used primarily in the Hellforge, but armaments are generated from factory settlements assembly lines. They are used to construct advanced military buildings and to empower your units in the Hellforge. So you gain this by building constructions, events, missions, production, as well as the Tower of Zharr, and then you lose it with building construction again, convoys, events, Hellforge upkeep, which is crucial, which we'll talk about, missions, and also technology. Lastly, we have conclave influence. Now, conclave influence is gained through expanding your territory, raising towers, and constructing Temple of Hashut buildings. Conclave influence can be spent to claim powerful rewards in the Tower of Zharr and occupy settlements in higher building levels. And you can gain this through events, labor actions, missions, settlement buildings in the Temple of Hashut, and then it is spent through building construction, events, seat claims, again in that Tower of Zharr, as well as technology. So those are your three main ones. Then you have that additional one of your labor, or it's kind of like the slave economy from Dark Elves, but a little different because it actually goes directly into benefiting and ensuring the production of whatnot in your individual settlements. So all this is your general campaign mechanics as far as how the currency is concerned, how you get that currency and what have you. And we're going to go into more ways in which you get that currency because it'll be part of our settlement discussion, which is next. So here is our building browser for Zorn Uzkul. Now, this is the very first or beginning couple of turns of Ashragoth's campaign. So this is, again, just try to limit as much spoilers as possible. So when you take a look here, you have got your typical style of looking at a settlement in Total War Warhammer. You have got your landmarks, your resources, your basic, your advanced military, your infrastructure, and then your defenses. But the way that this is actually working is different. You can see these little icons here that denote what resource is required in order to build things in those locations. If there's no resource, then it just requires gold. Take, for example, the basic military building. It just requires 750 gold. But let's look at this advanced military building with the lava fields. It requires 250 armament because the armament symbol is right here on advanced military. Same thing with infrastructure. We see that shows the raw material, and so it requires 250 raw material to build these living quarters. If I look at this down at the actual settlement level, it's a little bit easier to see some of those things, but I don't have any open slots. So just if you're looking at this, go, man, that's kind of hard to see. It's easier when you're down on the actual settlement level. Now, outside of that, it's crucial to note this. It is crucial. The settlement buildings do not require growth. There is no growth with the Chaos Dwarfs. Much how the Tomb Kings don't have any upkeep cost on their military, these guys don't have actually any, is it upkeep cost or the recruitment cost? Either way, these guys don't have any growth. They just require raw materials. So making these, this says 1,200 raw materials to make our second level, so on and so forth. Now the minor settlements have things a little bit differently. So let's take a look over here. This is a factory. The factory requires raw materials to go up. The basic and advanced and infrastructure are all basically kind of the same, right? Infrastructure requires raw materials. Advanced military requires armaments. But if I look over here at an outpost, outpost just simply requires gold to go up. So you've got three different types of settlement within the Chaos Dwarfs. You have your tower, which is pretty much your main settlement here, but you can choose to erect a factory or an outpost rather than a tower. It's entirely up to you. But tower is one of them, kind of like the Chaos Dark Towers in a way. These are your big, expanded, larger settlements that can go all the way up to tier 5. Then you have got your factories and your outposts. Now, factories are responsible for 3 main buildings in the infrastructure section. The settlement itself will produce income and gives you conclave influence and what have you, but these 3 things are what's important. The gunsmith, the assembly line, is going to take raw materials per turn and turn it into armament, as well as chaos corruption. You can see that at the top end right there. So when you have 300 or more raw materials, so you basically have to have the raw material to expend. If you don't have it in a given turn, it will not cause this action. Then the other option is refinery. You take the raw materials and turn it into money. Or lastly, you just have a raw material output bonus in the local province. So the entire province. So this is the province, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 versus the local region, which would be the specific settlement within the province, just to kind of make that nomenclature very clear because it can be very confusing. You get your defense buildings, as to be expected, as well as the signal fires. The defense buildings for the Chaos Dwarfs are pretty spicy. Like, take a look at the main settlement. Like, dude, that gets real big. And then this guy right here, oh, Dreadquake mortar battery upgrade. We've gone off course, but still, let's jump back here to the outpost. So our other minor settlement building is the outpost. And the outpost has 3 big production or infrastructure buildings. The raw material gained from here, but it increases our workload, which I'll get to in just a little second. It's that industry icon right here in the lower left. Then we get the treasure trove, which is just pretty much a straight income bonus and income from post-battle loot in all armies in adjacent regions. Very nice. You build this in the forefront of any place you're starting to expand to. You'll get a little bit more money when you go through it as you're expanding. And then lastly, we have the watchtower, which helps out with campaign line of sight as well as control. Now we do have 2 defense buildings, as to be expected, and then your basic military building. So both the outpost and the factory do have that same basic military building, but the factory can make Chaos Dwarfs as well as the war machines. So you can get access to those in your factories. Those are the big 2 differences there. So just to kind of show those 2 again really quick. I happen to have a rare resource here with the pastures, so it gives me goat farms, but that's not going to be there. This is your standard outpost, as it were. So you also do have the drill, but that's going to be part of the Realm of Chaos mechanic, which we'll go into in its own section at the very end of this video. And for those wanting to see the ancient inner city, this is that there for you. So now that we've gone through each individual minor settlement and major settlement of the settlements, let's talk about our labor actions. So we have 3 labor actions, and they're going to cost us our labor. So you can see here, this is going to give us control. This is going to generate 1,500 treasury when activated, and it's only for 1 turn. And this is going to help generate conclave influence, which we'll use in the Tower of Zharr. So what you really want to look at, though, is because this is going to cost you 200 labor for each action and then locks out the actions for a little bit. You have this little gauge right here, the industry gauge. So this is the total amount of workload, and this is the total amount of laborers. If this number is ever lower than this number, it is going to reduce this number. So your raw material output is determined by the percentage efficiency of the industry in your region. Let's recap and see how that works. So we have 700 total labor here, but only 400 workload. So we have more than enough efficiency, so our raw material output will maximize to the majority, or to the best of its ability. Meaning, let me read this here. Raw materials are primarily generated by mine buildings and outpost settlements. Workload will increase in province each time a mine is constructed. To extract 100% of the raw materials available, meaning that 100% of the buildings you have created that say they're going to produce a raw material, in order to get that actual number, they have to have 100% efficiency. If you say, let's say that number is 300 and I have 50% efficiency, then I'm only going to get 150 until I put enough laborers into that province. And you get laborers by raiding, by going out and by fighting and getting all sorts of fun stuff. It should say up here, labor economy, labor population. We'll go into it in its own section on how you get them and everything, and how you disseminate them around your provinces. But still, I apologize, my allergies are crushing me out, as always. You can shut off labor being sent to this province if you want by clicking this button. But a lot of this comes down to control. Because if you have poor control, it's going to make a lot of this a lot harder on you. So you want to really make sure your control is maximized to the best of its ability with the Chaos Dwarfs. It's why you have the ability to basically throw 200 laborers to the wind and get 10 control. You really need to focus on it a lot. So that covers our buildings, the outposts, the factories, and the towers. But each one is really going to be dependent upon how or where you are at in your campaign. In the early portions of the campaign, my personal experience has been you want kind of a 2-to-1 ratio. This is a really good example. We have 1 tower, 1 factory, and we have 2 outposts. In this campaign, and I'll show it to you in a little bit, we expand over here into High Pass, and I just do the same exact thing. Because raw materials are what replace essentially growth for you. And there's so many buildings that really require these raw materials to really build and expand your empire. Sure, you can just kind of get by with money and armaments up to a point. But if you want tier 5 major settlements, you need raw materials. If you want advanced military buildings, you need armaments. But if you want advanced infrastructure buildings, you need raw materials. If you're playing the Realm of Chaos campaign and you want to advance the drill, you need raw materials. So there are a ton of reliance on raw materials and how they're really going to benefit you across the board. And they're going to play into the next couple of mechanics we talk about. But first, let's jump into the research tree. So the research tree for the Chaos Dwarfs is divided into 3 separate sections, sectors, districts, whatever you want to call them. And it's pretty cool. I actually very much like how this works. I think it's very fun, intuitive, and kind of creates a little bit of a different drive behind everything. So if you want to say go heavy, hard in the paint and military, and let's say, we're playing as Astrogoth, so he has a really big emphasis on bull centaurs. So I'm going to type in bull centaur right here. And we're going to go all the way up to this route. So as we go up this, we're going to take 500 armaments to get to temple training. And with 3.0, we now know exactly which technologies and who they are, exactly who benefits from those technologies, which is a huge boon. So you can see that is how the military one works. And it's split pretty much on the left side. You have all of your hobgoblins, your bull centaurs, stuff like that. Also your monsters. Big old bad beasts. Then on the right side, you have pretty much anything with contempt. It might be the best way to look at it, although bull centaurs, I believe, have contempt. So it doesn't really, they have contempt. But on the right side, it's pretty much all Chaos Dwarfs, right? Then also Kadai and War Machines in this section too. So just to kind of quickly give you an idea of what that looks like, you'd be jumping into them however way. But then you also have this little individual section that allows you to use armaments to reduce upkeep, which is a huge portion of the army. The armies are not cheap. They ain't cheap even a little bit. So you use these to kind of get recruitment ranks and whatnot. Just hovering over those real quick to show you. So then we also have sorcery. And as you would think that this is just simply has to do with sorcery, it does not. It actually has to do with a lot of civic stuff too. So you see tallest towers, this is control and campaign line of sight. Finest leaders, this is lord and hero recruitment rank. So it's not necessarily directly sorcery, but the main focus of this technology branch is Conclave as a resource. So what you'll see in these locations is that these icons denote which resource is primarily being used in that section for advanced technologies. So communing altar, for example, here, concave influence gained from all resources, research rate plus 10%. That's going to cost you 100 conclave to even do. So keep these things in mind. I mean, you can get at stuff like this, which actually is sorcery related, or like Hashut Bound here, Winds of Magic and cooldown for Lore of Hashut, but it's mainly a lot of civic stuff as well as a lot of sorcery stuff. And it's important to kind of get an idea of which technologies you want to focus on, because some of these will say, let's go to this, please. Effect unlocked when technology extended shifts research, income generated 50. So you get more money from doing certain things here. I think there's more too in the refinery section. Nope, and a nope. Never mind, I lied. But still, there are a lot of things that overlap with technologies in the Chaos Dwarf repertoire. So you want to make sure you take a look at those and get a good sense of which ones are going to kind of pave the way for the type of economy you have in mind. Into that last one, though, we have industry. Industry is going to be raw materials focused. Remember, raw materials are just so needed for your campaign on so many levels. And with that, we have a focus on a lot of different things. This whole right side is pretty much convoy related, and it expands your cargo, it expands your gem and gold mine income here, your campaign movement range for tower patrols, but max cargo, your convoy overseer experience per turn, and their lord recruitment rank. I mean, this isn't necessarily a big guide on how to go through the technology, but like turn one, you should just go ahead and recruit right into veteran convoy masters so that they come out at the highest level possible for your first convoy at level 5 at turn 5. So I would do that turn 1. But then you get on this left side, you have a lot of stuff with labor economy and benefiting that, or any kind of individual stuff with construction or income from specific resources. That's all done here in industry, as to be expected. But that is the technology tree for the Chaos Dwarfs. It is very resource dependent, unlike almost any other technology tree, but you can see you get a ton of benefits by really focusing on specific portions of it. Next up is the convoy system. Now, the military convoys will expand throughout your playthrough, and especially as you start to send more and more convoys out, it's very similar to the Cathayan convoy system, in which case every time you send a convoy out, you discover more land and it allows you to send to more places. Now, we're on the Realm of Chaos campaign because I just wanted to showcase it from this angle, since we're talking about strictly the campaign mechanics, and there's one mechanic that is not in the Immortal Empires campaign. But it's very similar to, again, what you would do with the with Cathay. Press create new convoy, and then you're going to select your convoy master. Now you have monster commander here, which has additional monsters. Also, Lord's Army gets a speed bonus as well as weapon shrink bonus for Taurus and Great Lamasus. You have ogre controller here, but you also have one for Infernal Guard. Oh, worth noting, diplomatic relations plus 20 with Ogre Kingdoms and allegiance points gains. So a lot of these things will kind of expand out of the convoy system as far as benefits to your faction. So keep those things in mind when you're taking a look at them. But one will make it so they add 2 Infernal Guard. And every single convoy has the same base of 2 Dwarf Warriors and 2 Dwarf Warriors with Thunder Buses. So expanding on that is basically whatever the commander specializes in. So Ogre Controller, Monster Commander, Infernal Guardsman, or whatever the one for Infernal Guardsman is. There's 1, 2 for War Machines. There's 1 for Hobgoblins. There's tons of different variants, just like there is for Cathay. Let's just go ahead and choose Monster Commander, hire and add Master. And now we choose what or where to go, right? This guy is now, for all intents and purposes, been recruited to my faction. If I exit out of the screen, and I press this military convoys again, he's not there, but he's recruited. I can find that out quickly by seeing him right there. He's the overseer, he's right here. I can go and deal with him as I see fit. And his skills are very similar to what we got with Cathay too, right? Convoy shortcuts, God, convoy ambush, my mouth today. Replenishment rate and attrition reduction. Cargo increase, sale of cargo increase, and then cargo capacity increase right here, as well as your typical red line and yellow line on him. But if I jump back into military convoys and press create convoy again, I have him to just quickly select, and I can go into his army panel if I want, but add master again. And from here, we get to determine where to go. So look at these 2 symbols. Look at this photograph. You have these 2 symbols here, right? So this is what is outgoing, as is denoted right here. And this is what is incoming, as is denoted right here. So I am spending gold to get laborers. I'm going to click this button. So I can spend armament to get laborers, gold for laborers, gold for raw materials, gold for laborers, so on. And so armament for laborers, it's not always gold, right? It just depends on what it is. And as you explore more regions, you'll actually get access to more places to go. And this is especially true when you do Immortal Empires. Now, it's worth noting that it's not just simply an exchange of resources. Once you get to that location, you'll actually get an item and some additional benefits, very similar to the Cathayan convoys. Like, for example, the first time I did Volary, I got a special Tzeentchian blade. That was like those Tzeentchian enchanted blade or whatever. It was really good. But you can also increase the amount that you're giving in your outgoing to increase your incoming. Now, this, of course, makes it a higher risk, higher reward for you, and you will have little dilemmas upon the route to that location. So this is going to take me 6 turns to get there, and every time you hit one of these nodes, you'll have something to kind of deal with, right? Like, oh, okay, here's a dilemma, here's a possible battle. You might go by it, you might not. Here's a dilemma, there's another battle, and then you actually make it to the location. So just be mindful of this as you're going through it the first time. I really like going to ones that give me raw materials, because basically I'm paying money that you get in spades. You get so much money when you do these, or when you're playing the Chaos Dwarfs. So I like to spend it to raw materials because that's something that forwards my economy a whole ton. I think that's probably the best way to go. I don't have a whole ton of experience with the Chaos Dwarfs, but from my initial kind of glance, that's the best way, or using laborers to really help me out. Armaments I can really get a hold of quickly, but laborer economy and raw materials are the two things I find are the best on the knife's edge for the Chaos Dwarfs. Also, last thing to keep in mind here is that the resources will change in 5 turns. These outgoing and incoming will kind of swap around, and as you go to a location, it will then reduce its resource out to you. So if we do the Volary right now, we successfully do this caravan and come back, then the Volary will no longer have 365 raw materials offered to me. It will go down and then it will replenish over time. So keep all those things in mind when you play through your first Chaos Dwarf campaign. The next mechanic, the Tower of Zharr, only unlocks once you reach 75 Conclave, that little horn up here, a little bullhorn thing. And then you have a pretty cool little system. So it's broken up into individual tiers. Tier 1, 2, 3, and then lastly 4. And each tier is then divided into 3 districts: sorcery, military, and industry, which goes all the way up here. And within those you have seats. The first one only has 4, the next one's got 3, then the last one has 2, before jumping into the actual conclave at the very top. Now, doing these, you spend the conclave and you get the bonus. So for example, raw material, 100 per turn, raw material output. I think this is like the best one off the start because you get it early in the game and it's sweet. And once you get all 4 seats in this district, now keep this in mind. I think it shows it right here, right? Seats in the conclave cannot be usurped. Seats are grouped into districts. When all seats in a district are claimed, a district reward is unlocked. District rewards apply to all dwarfs. So if you get all 4, you personally get all 4 of these, then the district is unlocked. If you get 1 and the AI gets 1, then another one, then the district is unlocked. The seats just have to be filled. When 2 or more districts in the tier are completed, the next tier's district. Okay, I thought it said something else about that, but seat rewards apply only to your faction, but the district rewards apply to the entire Chaos Dwarf. So what I mean by that is, if I get the seat for the Machinator here, I get this raw material bonus. But if the AI gets the income from settlements and the grant random holy or grant follower or banner ancillary, or the console one here, if they get those other 3, I do not get those bonuses. But all 4 seats are seated, and then we all get the industry district bonus. So again, one last time to quickly recap, you get your individual seat bonus plus the district bonus. So that's like the short and narrow of it. But the completion towards the district is faction wide. So as long as that number reaches 4 out of 4, in any way possible, everyone gets that industry district bonus right there. So raw material output and armaments output. So I really find that some of these seats are very underwhelming, and I think that's pretty intentional, right? Like, okay, I want to get this one, so I'm going to blitz to it as fast as I can. And it's worth noting that every time a seat is taken, the cost does go up. Now, I don't know if that's a faction-wide cost increase or if it is an individual cost increase. So I don't know if, hey, there's 5 seats taken across tier 1, so now tier 1 cost per seat is this much versus what it costs for my individual amount. I haven't been able to watch it per turn, but still, it's worth noting that it is not 75 the entirety of the time. It will go up. But you have some really good ones on here, right? Casualty replenishment rate, which is really nice to just have a flat 6% always and forever. Grants random item. This one's random items or talismans. This one is random follower or banner. I think there's another random one in here too. There's not. Oh, random weapon or armor in this one. So it's like you can get some really cool way to equip your other heroes and lords using the quartermaster. So each one of these does have a purpose. Some again are a little bit more underwhelming than the other, like armaments minus 10% for all unit capacity upgrades in the Hellforge is great. Raw material output, income from settlement buildings increased by 25%. Not something that I find terribly crucial until the latter portions of the game. But again, just wanted to show some of these off here for you. Trade tariffs by 50%. So it's just kind of like a balancing act of which character do you play? Which thing are you trying to focus on the most? Like, hey, are you really struggling to get your Hellforge off the ground? Then go get the blacksmith or go get this one to help out with armament cost reduction. Then this goes up here to additional district bonuses, global recruitment, max number of active convoys, chaos undivided corruption, and you get more like lord abilities here for summoning Kadai Fireborn, which is spicy. Just going to show some of these off really quick, just kind of hovering over them. You can just slow down. You can stop the video and go back to these, any of the ones that interest you the most. But I just want to kind of quickly show those off. And then your tier 3 ones, control for industry district, military district giving you global recruitment duration reductions. Temporary army of hobgoblins when sacking enemy settlements. That is so sick. So I hadn't even seen that one. Sorcery abilities for the Doom of Hashut as well as Mutator. And then lastly, when you get to the Conclave, unlock this tier by completing 2 districts in tier 3. And then you can confederate an entire faction. So the servants of the Conclave are the people that are controlling Zharr. This is Atan the Black's faction, and then this is Drazoeth's faction. So probably doing a Master of the Conclave is the best way, because then you just get Zharr. That is a fully built out city. As of the start of this game, with the power of mods. Oh, I don't even need to use the power of mods. Like you can see, this thing is stacked. It's tier 5. It's already good to go, and we're on turn 7. So getting Zharr is a huge power spike to your economy and to your military. So just kind of consider those things as you're moving through the Tower of Zharr in your first campaign. The next big mechanic I want to go through is the Hellforge, and it is a very interesting mechanic because this is basically how you create the backbone of your military. You have unlimited, unfettered access to laborers and hobgoblins, but access to any of the elite Chaos Dwarf units, or anything pretty much tier 2 or higher, is done through the Hellforge. And you do this by spending armament, and that goes towards the unit cap of a specific set of units. Warriors, for example, in both their Dwarf Warrior and Great Weapon variant are right here. Keep in mind that this is separated from the blunderbusses, which are still called Chaos Dwarf blunderbusses or Chaos Dwarf Warrior blunderbusses, but they're over here nonetheless. Fireglades are still Infernal Guard, but they are separate from the melee infantry one. And it's because both have different sets of runes, which we'll show off in the manufactory in a little bit. But when you invest armament towards this Forge Armory stock, you increase this right here, right? So I'm going to spend 125 to increase this up to 4. Then this number is the total value of everything in this section. So 3 plus 1 plus 1 is 5, which results in me unlocking the Rune of Frenzy. Now, if I say had everything up to a total of 13, this would unlock the Rune of Immunity, making me immune to contact effects, and the Rune of Resistance, giving me physical resistance 10%. So it's a really cool way to get a lot of bonuses activated by investing into it. Am I going to play Astrogoth, who has a huge emphasis in my Bull Centaurs? Well, then I'm going to want to jump this thing up to 10 as fast as I can to give them an 800 hit point barrier. That is juicy. So the other side of the Hellforge is the Manufactory, which, like I said, is where you're going to use those runes. So the Manufactory is pretty straightforward, but it also needs little lightning bolts on these eyeballs. So let's click the Rune of Frenzy. So again, straightforward, but it also does require a little bit of knowledge here. So the upkeep on applying a rune is retroactive. So any existing units get this rune. It's one of the first times where we get that active in Total War Warhammer. Usually it's got to be like new units and stuff like that. But this would apply the Rune of Frenzy to all of my existing units. And then that is locked for, I think, 5 turns. And then once it comes unlocked again, you can change around. So this basically prevents you from constantly swapping them to kind of deal with your armaments. But this number of 8 is multiplied per unit. So you can see right here, total upkeep, 8 armament per unit, times it by 3 since we've got 3. So that's my upkeep is 24. So if I were to say, let's just say I had this one here too, Rune of Sundering and Rune of Frenzy, that would mean my upkeep would be 20 times 3. So my upkeep would be 60. And it's nice here because I can just quickly look over here to see if I can even deal with that. Okay, I'm producing 6. My Hellforge upkeep is 24. Can I take the additional, additional 36 pretty much in upkeep? I actually can in this instance. But you want to make sure that this number is going to fall in line with your, or fall under your production amount so that you can actually get the most bang for your buck. I don't think I can show you. Yeah, unfortunately I can't. And hey, anyway, this is a no spoiler video, so I guess it's good that I can't show you the other ones. But still, you would just simply do this for every single set of units you'd want to get. And that's when armament becomes very important in that kind of later portions of your campaign. In the very beginning, it's not as crucial. Your raw materials are far more important, but then you'll start to get a much bigger Chaos Dwarf army going, where you have more Chaos Dwarfs and more missile infantry and so on and so forth, and more actual runes active that you'll want to invest in these, so that you get higher unit caps and you get better runes active for your entire military. Now, the last mechanic I want to get into before going into the Realm of Chaos specific one is the labor economy. So you can see at the top here, we're at 50% of our average efficiency because we have 100 in Zorn Uzkul and 0% in the High Pass. We now have 2 provinces, provinces. Now you'll only get this as access to the labor economy when you get access to 2 provinces. So until you get to that point in the game, this will not be active. But from here, we have a way to kind of spice things up. We are producing a certain amount of raw materials. That's our output at 630. And we have a 500% efficiency. We can see our workload is 800, but we have a massive surplus of 1121. So we can kind of split this around. And we also get an idea of how much our total workload is, right? 800 plus 300. So the first thing we want to do is press new intake. So we're allowing High Pass to take in more laborers whenever we do actions that generate laborers, such as raiding and the such. And we can press this button to move laborers out of this province into a surplus pool. And if we press this button, we can do it until this efficiency button, or this efficiency number, gets red. And that would be when you dip below that 800 workload, right? As we talked about before, you want your laborers to be at or above, ideally above your workload amount. So we can completely tank this if we want, but ideally we don't want to do that. Let's put that at around this number right here, which is exactly what it is. So you can see that we had, let's go all the way to the top here. We had 1121, and if I bring this to 821, we're 21 over our efficiency, right? If I drop this down and back up, it stays that number. You're only plus or minusing 100. I can go all the way to the bottom and even it out and just add 100 into this so it gets to 800. But it's letting you know, like, hey, yeah, you're plus or minus 100%. If anything happens, you're going to be in the red on this. So I'm doing it for the sake of the video though, so we're going to do that real quick. And then we're going to increase the laborer workload in this, or the laborer amount in this, because the workload is 300. And we have just enough to reach it. I'll pop in the extra 21 there. Actually, you know what? Pop an extra 21 there to give us that green 100%. So now we see that we have spread our laborers across our little burgeoning empire, and we have efficiency of 100% in both locations. We can see the raw materials we're going to get is the max of what it would be over here, roughly the max of what it would be over here, assuming nothing big happens. But then it's also going to cost me some money to do so. So we're going to press accept and watch that number at the very top. Yes. It goes from 50% to 100% because we are now average efficiency 100% across the board. Now you're going to be doing this a lot throughout your empire as you kind of bring more things into the fold, as you do any kind of labor actions. Now remember, we talked about your public order, right? This is going to cause a labor loss per turn. So you want to make sure you keep a good eye on your public order. This has got a 3 public order, so 5% labor loss. A minus 27 control, so we're at 10% labor loss. So we'll lose 30 labor next turn. Minimum of 5% is what it's saying. So it has a variance in there. So basically, the lower the control, because you have less control, right? It's not public order anymore. It's less control over the province's settlement. You have less control on your laborers. So you want to make sure you want that number as high as possible to make it so that you lose less laborers per turn and you're not constantly having to funnel them in. You funnel them in again by doing those raiding actions, by doing any wars, by fighting individual battles, or by doing any kind of settlement actions which will generate laborers for you. There's a bunch of other little things like events and whatnot, but those are a little bit more unreliable. But that is your labor economy for the Chaos Dwarfs. All right, our last mechanic is the drill. And the drill is kind of similar to the Vampire Coast. You build a landmark building called the Giant Conveyor. Is a drill forgecraft. It generates raw materials for you, which is lovely. It does cost workload, but it also makes armaments for you, and it'll give you some income. Nice thing too is it gives you the ability to recruit Chaos Dwarfs right out the gate. Then it progresses up and gives you more benefits. But as you progress through each one of these, you then get to different stages in the campaign. And if I press this button, it shows me, okay, you want the drill advancements here. That's the rewards you get, unlocks the next stage towards campaign victory. And I can press this button to rush construction. Now this is a general campaign thing I probably should have talked about in the general campaign section, but we're bringing it up now. You can spend labor to basically instant produce something. So that thing takes 2 more turns, and every turn you get closer to its completion, it costs less labor. It's pretty much, I think it's that number times 100. Yeah, so it's the turns remaining times 100. So as you can see, 100 here, 300 here, 200 for these two. So I'll press this button. It'll just go ahead and advance that. It's done. But now we have the ability to do a quest battle, which will then reward me with the location of ancestor relics. Now, that is part of another mechanic in here, which we've seen this in the gameplay video from Creative Assembly from Total War. But you can then choose to use those ancestor relics to put into the dwarf or into the drill to give you faction-wide benefits, or to claim them for yourself to give you personal and lord specific benefits. So that is the kind of dual-edged, I guess, razor's edge thing that you're going to run with the Great Drill of Hashut and the Chaos Dwarf campaign, is deciding, do you want to put those runes towards the drill and advance the campaign, or put them towards yourself to give you a power bonus to help you complete the campaign, because you will have to fight a lot of battles to get those relics. Those relics are basically quest battles that you go and deal with every time you find them on this little map, and they'll display here and you just go and you do them. Again, I'm trying to make this as spoiler-free as possible by showing you this screen versus the one that they show you in the campaign video on Creative Assembly's website. So hopefully you're Total Wars or Creative Assembly's YouTube. So hopefully this does it for you without spoiling anything. But those are the mechanics here for the Chaos Dwarfs. And I hope this now gives you a really good idea of how the campaign plays for them. It is going to be a very dense campaign with a lot of slow progression, because you do have to worry about your raw material production, not growth anymore, right? You're not just jumping through the usual hoops of growth building, income building, defense building, and your minor settlements. You're now having to jump through harder hoops of getting armaments online for the upkeep, getting raw materials online for your progressive point in your economy, as well as advancing your technology or what have you. Conclave as well, boosting all those things. And I smacked the crap out of my mic. Boosting all those things to really help you out. So it is a very mechanic heavy campaign, and I think it's a really, really, really fun one and an interesting one. I think in Immortal Empires it's going to be even more interesting to kind of see how this really changes the game. I mean, now that you've got the Chaos Dwarfs in the Darklands, it makes for a very different and challenging experience depending upon which lord you're playing. But if you have any questions, you want more information about specific mechanic or whatever it is, feel free to go ahead and just ask me in the comment section below. Maybe you want to see a specific research. I'll go ahead and hover over it, take a screenshot and put it on Imager for you, whatever helps out the most. Also, you can swing on over to Twitch and watch me live stream this. You can ask the questions live and I'll show them off to you as best I can. Those live streams, of course, will be VODed back onto the channel so you can see them after the fact, whatever helps you the most. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.